I need to be quick. I don't have much time before they come back. I am part of an experiment, and I don't know where I am, but I need to know that someone, somewhere, is looking for me. Please. I keep a log of my days in a journal, and they cannot find out that I've had access to a computer. Please, anyone, look for me. I can't take this anymore. The last thing I saw before getting thrown overboard was their hands tying the blocks of cement to my feet. Next thing I knew, the sounds from above were muffled by the water surrounding me. Down, down, down I went, legs first into the dark depths below. The light from under the boat shone, refracting in the water. I knew I should have held my breath, but I couldn't help but scream in my struggle to break free from the blocks dragging me down deeper. I felt pain like nothing I had felt before as water filled my lungs, suffocating me. My ears popped from the change in pressure, and I knew that soon my lungs would explode too. Explode they did, and I felt every ounce of pain. But I knew I wouldn't die. I'm not like everyone else, you see. I was born, but not to die, and I've been subjected to a life of pain without end. My body is used over and over again to see the things that you cannot see, and to do the things that you cannot do. I didn't ask them to make me this way. But still, I am used in their experiments to better the world. There are some things that the world is better off not knowing. As the water enveloped me, I saw the last bit of light from the surface disappear. My body was mangled from what I could tell, although I couldn't feel the parts of it where the nerves had died. It was pitch black, and I couldn't even tell if my eyes were closed or not. The ocean is a scary place, deeper than you could ever imagine. The things that live below the waters have been there longer than you have, longer than man has or ever will be. These things are very much alive and real, and it is only the distance that keeps you from ever coming into contact with them. They cannot survive up there, and you will not survive down here. Very soon I started to feel movement in the water around me. Things that I couldn't see were writhing around, touching my body, and in the dark there was no telling what it actually is. With my ears destroyed, I couldn't even hear anything in the water around me. All I could do was feel the sensations of the creatures. The writhing grew denser and denser, and very soon I was being completely engulfed in it. I could feel it pulsating around me. I could feel its heartbeat, proof that whatever it was alive. The thing wrapped itself around me tighter and tighter and mashed me between its appendages. The moment I felt the pressure get the tightest, I was back in the lab, soaking, wet, and naked. The scientists and doctors gathered around me in the stunningly bright light. They inspected me for any damage, but as always, there was none. They questioned me about what I saw and felt down below, but they didn't seem satisfied with my limited answers. I had said all that I could, but it wasn't enough. Tomorrow they will throw me overboard again, this time with a light fastened to me to see. The doctors know that I feel every bit of pain, but they don't care anymore. I am not human to them. After all, part of being human is dying. They've even tried all the ways they could think of to kill me in between their experiments to explore the world. I've been mutilated, taken apart piece by piece to see if it will kill me. Please, stranger, I know I'm not the same as you, but I am going insane in here. I learned this when I was a kid. Whenever I was outside after sundown, I would start to feel something approaching, closer and closer. With each passing moment after dark, the feeling would get stronger. It would start out as the feeling of someone or something watching you. Then the feeling would progress into something following you, then feeling something right behind you. Then I would go home. But the feeling would not go away. I would always feel something lurking in the other room, in the balcony, maybe in my room. I don't know what would happen if I stayed outside after the feeling of something behind me started creeping. I never stayed outside that long after sundown to learn about that. Sometimes, while in my room, I would feel like something is looking inside through the window, as if something is right outside. I would feel terrified to remove the curtains. I couldn't dare to look. When I told what I felt to the elders in my house, they would always warn me firmly, whenever you have that feeling, don't look back. I never questioned it. I always complied with the rules. Years passed. I moved to another city and already forgot about this. Until recently. I inherited my father's old house after he died. After deciding to sell it, I went there to check the status of the property. It was a long drive from where I live in my hometown. By the time I reached there, it was already late at night. As soon as I drove inside my old hometown, the feeling of something watching started creeping on me, even when I was inside the car. A few minutes later, and I felt like I was being stalked. A few more minutes later, and I started feeling like something was in the back seat of my car. I still remembered what my mother told me when I was a child. Whatever you do, don't look back. I turned my car mirror to the other side and tried to fight the irresistible urge to just look behind while I was driving at full speed. It was getting worse every second. I started feeling something right behind my neck and shoulder while I was sweating and trying to hold myself from looking behind while the thing came ever closer. Then I reached my old house and parked in front. I rushed inside and locked the door. But I noticed something odd inside. At first, I thought that the weird feeling was because of seeing this big house as empty for the first time. I was always with my family back when I was here. Without them, the place looked so empty, and I felt so alone. But I quickly noticed another thing. All the curtains on the windows were removed. Windows were now directly looking outside. I went to my room. Going inside would normally turn the feeling of something approaching into just being watched. But it didn't this time. Maybe because there are no curtains. I am scared to go back outside. There isn't a sign of a single human being around. My phone battery is running low. Something gets closer and closer. I feel like just looking back. The first time I saw her, I thought I was asleep. It had to be a nightmare. No way something like that could exist in real life. Tall, her head almost touching the ceiling if she wasn't hunched over. Thin, frail looking as if she was starving. Her mouth hung ajar like she had taken a sledgehammer to the face and her teeth. Like razors. But through all of that, it's her eyes. Hollow and empty except for the webs. Spiders crawled in and out of the eye sockets. 2 nights ago, she was standing at the foot of my bed. One long arm hung at her side with slender fingers hanging loosely. The other scratched at the spiders on her face viciously. I was so afraid that I actually fainted. No way I could have fallen asleep after seeing that, and yet I must have been asleep because my nightmare was terrifying. It was me in bed, but my covers were replaced with a blanket of spiders, each one biting one at a time, endlessly. When I woke up, my heart was racing, and I lifted my shirt to check myself for bites. Nothing. Thankfully, nothing at all. The next time I saw her was last night. Some of you might not be able to relate, but I'm not afraid of the dark. Never have been. So when I was getting ready for bed, I shut off all my lights in the house, checked the door handles to make sure they were locked, and dragged my fingertips down the wall on the way back to my bedroom at the back of the house. Like a blind man reading Braille, I knew every bump, every ridge, every change in texture in the hallway. I knew exactly when the trim of the spare bedroom doorway would be. 2 steps, then touching the wall again. A few more steps while touching the wall, and the floor changes from vinyl to carpet. By now my eyes were adjusted to the dark, but they weren't alert. I've made that midnight walk 1,000 times. I had no reason to be alert. So when I saw her pitch black mass, darker even than the room, my heart hammered and my hand went to the light switch on the wall, but I didn't turn it on. I don't know if it was fear of seeing something at all in my room, or fear of seeing her again, the woman with webs for eyes. I hesitated, but also I was frozen in fear, barely able to see her through the darkness. I didn't dare blink. I couldn't risk losing sight of her at all. She stepped backwards to the wall, and without turning, maybe she was facing the wall the entire time. Her arms reached up, another set of arms reached out from her sides, and both pairs of arms gripping the wall. Her legs spread out and she climbed, more like scuttled, up the wall, and into the corner where the wall met the ceiling. Her darkness merged with that black void in the room, and then I turned on the light. She was gone. Maybe she had never been there at all. But this morning I woke up with 2 tiny dots on my arm, raised into a small lump, clearly a bug bite. And it couldn't be my imagination or my nerves or pure fear, but I swear it feels like something moved inside that lump. And when I took a knife to it, nothing inside, just blood. I can't help but feel she's still around, hiding in a corner or something, just out of sight. I slowly walked towards the playground. I looked down at my clothes. They're so dirty and torn. I hope the other kids don't judge me for my clothes, I mumbled to myself. I just want to make more friends. I'm so tired of playing by myself. I have my favorite toy with me, so hopefully that helps with first impressions. As soon as I get to the playground, I go straight to the monkey bars. I love them so much. It's so easy for me. I'm getting dirty looks from the parents. I knew they were going to judge me because of my clothes. You just need to look past that and get to know me. I'm a really nice kid. After I'm done with the monkey bars, I walk over to a group of boys. Hey you guys, want to play with my favorite toy? I asked, and gave my biggest smile and stretched out my arm. They also gave me weird looks, just like their parents did. I start to feel embarrassed. I bring my toy close to my chest and start to cry a little bit. I wipe my tears with my sleeve. I walked away and saw a group of girls playing on the slide. I made my way towards them. I'm sure the girls will be nicer to me. When I got to the slide, a couple of parents ran over to me. I was confused. Why does everyone always hate me? What did I do wrong? One of the parents actually pushed me and I fell on the ground. Ow! That really hurt! Why'd you do that? That's so mean! I'm just a kid! I yelled at them. Tears are streaming down my face. I just wanted friends. I looked at my toy and I realized that when I fell it was scraped. Look at what you did! This was my favorite toy! I screamed and ran towards the parent that pushed me. A police officer tackled me and I was dazed. My head had hit the ground pretty hard. Why were they reading my rights? I'm so confused. They picked me up and dragged me towards the police car. I noticed my toy laying on the ground. My toy! Let me at least have my toy! I yelled, but no one listened. What did I do wrong? I just wanted friends. One of the police officers looked at me with disgust.
A grown man doesn't need to go to the park to be friends with children. You're disgusting.
A grown man? But I'm just a kid. There's no way that's possible. As soon as they threw me into the back of the police car, that's when I finally took my first look into the rearview mirror. My hair was greasy, wiry, and it was black and gray. My teeth were so crooked, yellow, and I was missing a few of them. My skin was so wrinkled and scarred. I stared into this mirror with disbelief. Is this really happening? I moved my face around. It's real. How old am I? How much time has passed? This will be the first time I have ever shared these stories, these coincidences, outside of my family. They've happened too many times to be just coincidences, like they lead me to believe. Let me start at the beginning. These first few happened when I was a child, spanning from the ages of 6 to 10. Anything earlier, I can't remember. I felt a strange bump on the back of my head, one that had never been there before. I told my father. He looked at it, then took me to the bathroom and pulled out rubbing alcohol, some cotton balls, and tweezers. I didn't know what he saw, but I trusted his judgment, like any child would trust their parents. After about 15 minutes, some pain and pulling, he managed to pull the tick that attached to the bottom of my head. "Look, son, it must have liked the taste of you," he said. I turned around to look at the tick, and saw a piece of skin stuck in its mouth. It scared me, knowing something was gnawing at my flesh, trying to grow fat for my blood. I knew of ticks. We had a dog. I just never thought they liked humans. The next time something happened like this, I was sitting in the car, picking at my scab on my leg that I got from bike riding. After peeling off the scab and having nothing else to mess with, I ignored it and went back to looking out the window. It wasn't until a little bit later that my leg began to tickle, right around the now open wound. As I went to scratch, I saw a freshly molted spider sitting under the bloody stream from my open sore, drinking it all in. I freaked out, flinging the spider onto the floor of the car, smashing it with my foot. My mother, currently driving at the time, asked what was wrong. I told her every detail I just shared with you. "Huh," she began. "He must have liked the taste of you." The last one was the worst. It was right around when my first set of teeth were coming loose. I had already lost 2 before this happened. I knew I had a tooth that was becoming loose, but not enough for me to pull it myself, as I did with the first 2. As I was asleep that night, I felt a warm sensation on my cheek. It took a few moments for me to get my bearings in the dark. However, I was able to make out a tooth not far from my resting face. I was excited, knowing my tooth fell out when I was sleeping. My sister and I had a Jack and Jill style bathroom, and I ran into it to look in the mirror to see the new gap. I wish I didn't. For in the new bleeding gum gap was 4 bed bugs cleaning it up. I freaked out, screaming and desperately trying to get them out of my mouth. I succeeded, just as my sister came into the bathroom, no doubt being woken up by my scream. "What's wrong?" she stated, alarmed. I pointed to the sink where the bedbugs now were, stammering like a mess. She saw them. Her face softened, and moved me into my room, rubbing my back. "It's okay," she said. "They only like the taste of you." Ever since then, I've always been wary. Any sign of any bug, I immediately killed it and called the exterminator once I owned my own place. Obviously, I can't eradicate every insect of this planet. I still have to deal with the mosquitoes and the like whenever I go outside during the summer. It's the main reason winter is my favorite season. Every day out of that season is always perilous for me. I just know that around any corner could be something waiting to get a taste of me. As far back as I am able to recall during the years of my childhood, I have always experienced strange phenomena. Rarely have I shared these experiences with others, due to most being unable to understand. So I have decided to share a few of them through the guise of online anonymity, and with the secondary hope of perhaps finding others who have experienced similar things. I was approximately 5 years of age or so. It was around 10 p.m., and my mother was down the hallway in the living room. As I laid upon my bed, I could see the dancing shadows cast from the living room fireplace upon the hallway wall. They were accompanied by the muffled sounds of her TV. It was comforting to know she was there. Yet despite the tangible proximity of my mother, I knew that in a very short amount of time, I would experience a dread I truly feared. The confronting sounds of my mother's existence down the hall would become increasingly dim, and soon be replaced with an increasingly deafening ringing. It was as if all sound was muted, and then replaced with a high-frequency pitch. What followed next was the tactile sensation. I could feel a slowly advancing wave of vibrating numbness begin to cascade over my body. But what truly disturbed me is when the door to my room would begin to slowly close upon its own volition. Now what happened next depended upon if I was able to yell for help. There were times I was unable to push through the numbness and ringing, to call for my mother, of which she would rush to my side, and the strange effects would recede. However, there were other times when the door would fully close, and no matter how loud I screamed, it couldn't pierce the heavy darkness that flooded into the room, washing away the walls. It was here when I felt true fear, for I knew I wasn't alone. I would often stay as motionless as possible, for I could hear something moving in the room. Footsteps upon the creaking floor, slow at first, 1 or 2 steps in a direction. Then it would stop. However, I could hear slow breathing as it stood in one place. That was until I heard a rapid sprinting of pounding upon the wooden floor, leading to something very heavy jumping into the bed. Slowly, I would feel an arm reach from behind me as I laid upon my side, and it would wrap around the front of my chest to embrace me. Slow yet steady breathing would caress my neck. That was until it suddenly ceased, and its mouth drew close to my ear. I could hear the parting of its lips and feel the wet drip of its sweet nothings as it delicately whispered them into my ear. It was here I would often scream, and the light beneath the door would again pierce back into my room. My mother would enter and question what is wrong, why I closed the door, and what had happened to me. I would tell her everything that transpired in great detail. Yet every time, she would only hug me tightly and kiss my head. That was actually quite a bit harder to record than I had anticipated. Recalling those experiences was difficult. I may or may not add more to this, depending if people want to know more or not. If not, I am fine leaving these memories to fade into oblivion. A mask covers one's identity. It hides their emotions. It creates mystery. The ominous look in their eyes will not be seen by anyone. They are able to commit any crime as long as they are hidden from society, for as long as they are in the dark. The first victim was a local around the area, a sad sack of living shit, a drug addict that would harass random people on the street for money, blaming them for why he is stuck on the streets, while they have a stable income and a house to live in. Parts of his mangled body were found in front of a trash can, where his mangled, half-burnt head was found rotting along with the trash that he became. The second victim was a drunk freeloader. He was new to the area, so he did what any normal person would do: pickpocket unsuspecting businessmen, harass female students up to the point where they would scream for help, and pick fights with random people because he was jealous that they were in a situation better than him. His body was found hanging from a tree, his eyes buried deep into his deeply cut chest, and his legs missing. The third was a single mother of 2 children. The poor kids were being starved to the brink of death. She abused them in public. She was mostly drunk, selling off her body to random men who made her reek of cologne that smelled like the putrid shit she became. Her body was put on display. Her bones were bent in all the wrong angles. Unlike the other 2 above, she was still alive. She could not speak because her ribs were piercing her lungs. She was choking on her own blood. In the worst pain imaginable, she could only moan what sounded like pleas for help. But a sad sack of shit like her was beyond saving. The fourth was a construction worker. Another sad sack of shit nobody who thought he could control people. He sexually harassed his female colleagues, which are still in therapy to this day. He blackmailed his apprentices, forced them to do acts which made them mentally incapable of ever speaking again. He preyed on the weak because he himself was weaker. The vile creature got what he deserved. He was found without limbs, his eyes sewn shut. His teeth were all jagged, and his lower jaw was hanging off his face while he wept tears of blood, trying to scream but to no avail, only further causing him agonizing pain to his jaw. He, of course, died of blood loss minutes later. The fifth victim was a police officer. Corrupt to the core, he killed people mercilessly. I watched that fucker perish. He somehow had enough fight to withstand 42 hours of torture. Fucking unbelievable. I cut deeper, and deeper, and deeper, until he couldn't take it anymore. He was begging me for mercy. Hypocritical bastard. I left that piece of shit screaming on the sidewalk. Karma sure is a bitch when it comes to justice. And I will be joining them soon. With what little reasoning I have left, I will blow my fucking brains out. I have become what I despised. A monster, a murderer, a stalker, a creep. I do not deserve sympathy, and I wish that no one will think what I did was right. Farewell. My brother loved spy movies, so much that he wanted to be one. He's 7 and I'm 14, so our ages don't really match. When our parents got him a set of walkie-talkies, he freaked out. These radios made that much difference in his life. Every day he would run out and play secret agent with his friends. Until we moved. When we got to our new house, my brother was depressed. Like he wouldn't go anywhere because he missed his friends. I did too, though. I was starting high school after this summer. My brother just sat there and held the walkie-talkie in his hand. That's when my parents said I should go play with him. I tried to say no, but he was jumping up with joy. I was forced to go outside and play with him. Every day as I got home, he would shove the radio in my face and drag me out the door. I tried getting a little free time, but with no avail. One day, I had a plan to stop it. My parents told me I had to stick with him, but I didn't care. He'd be fine on his own. I told him this time I was the agency, and he would go out on a mission, and I would keep in contact with him. He agreed and said, "Over and out," before running out the door. I listened in my walkie-talkie for any noise. I sat there for 15 minutes before I thought I should check on him. This is the following exchange that happened. "Crossing the street now, Control." "What are you doing?" "Crossing the street now. I see the bad guy." "No, you can't cross the street. Mom told you no." "It's okay, I got this." I ran out the door, praying he wouldn't cross Oak Street. He had told me where the bad guy was, but I didn't think he would do something stupid like that. I ran down the street and saw him at the edge of the curb. I screamed no and ran faster. He stepped off the curb and into the street and turned to wave at me. I pulled out my walkie and screamed, "Get out of the street!" He replied with, "It's okay, I killed the bad guy. See? Mission accomplished. Come back home now." "Okay, I'm coming. Over and out." I didn't finish as a giant truck smashed into him. His body flew through the air and landed with a crunch. I screamed before I blacked out. The next few days were a blur. People crying in the hospital room. My brother being declared dead. His funeral. And it all stopped when I sat doing my homework. I heard footsteps coming from the hall behind me. "Mom?" I asked. No response. I got up and went into the hallway. Nothing. That's when I saw something run into my brother's room. I walked in there and turned on the light, but nothing. I turned the light off and went back into my room. That's when the light turned on again. I walked back and turned it off when something pushed me down. I looked up and saw a horrifying version of my brother's face. I screamed and ran back to my room. It chased after me, laughing. I locked my door, but it began pounding on the other side. I sat in my room crying. That's when I woke up. I was at my desk doing my homework still. I noticed the walkie on my desk. I picked it up, and I was about to throw it into the trash when it started cackling. Then, in a demonic voice, it said, "Over and out." This story is going to be short, and I apologize for that, but enjoy nonetheless. I always keep a water bottle by my bed. It has been this way since I was just a kid. I fill it every night before I go to sleep. That's how I knew something was wrong. I had been out late with some friends. I checked the clock as I walked inside. It read 11 p.m. I was tired. It had been a long night of drinking and laughing. I dragged myself up the stairs to my room. I opened the door and changed into my pajamas and pulled back the covers and crawled into bed. As I reached for my nightstand, I froze. My water bottle was half empty. That was impossible. I had filled it up last night and hadn't drank any at all. I had left early this morning and wouldn't have drank any then. I decided I must have forgot a few swigs before going to sleep last night. I had been tired after all. I thought nothing more of it, but decided I could go for a swallow before going to sleep. As I lifted the bottle to my lips and began to drink, I tasted a vile aftertaste in the water. "What the heck?" I said in between gags. It was then I noticed the slight Bowman color in the water. I dropped the bottle in disgust and watched as it spilled on the brown carpet, leaving a wet, dark area. Something else had drank out of my water. That was all I could think. That's when I noticed it. I was wide awake now and noticed so many things at once. My closet door was open, and I never left it open. The light in the closet was on as well, and a faint glow spilled out into my room. Fear boiled in my chest as I realized that my attic entrance was in that exact closet. It was then in that exact moment of fear and silence, I heard a sound. A terrible sound. It was a single thump. It came from right above my bed. I sat in shock as the thump was followed by what sounded like a large animal or something crawling on all fours to the closet. It stopped right where the hatch in the ceiling would be. That's when I heard the worst sound of all. A creaking, squealing sound that made my breath catch in my throat. I thought my heart would pound out of my chest. I heard the ladder unfold and hit the floor audibly. This was followed by the creaking of someone coming down the ladder as I sat there trying not to scream out. I watched as the door slowly opened and a dirty man stepped out and glared at me with a crazed look in his eyes. His mouth opened, revealing a dirty row of teeth stained with black marks or something. He spoke in a gruff but high voice.
"I saw you noticed me. I have been watching you for some time now."
Then he ran. I sat in a shocked silence. Then I screamed and didn't stop. Being in the halls made me anxious. I couldn't help but look all around me, hoping that no one was looking at me, hoping that no one would stare. I prayed they wouldn't laugh at me today, that they wouldn't take my backpack and empty it out on the trash like they usually do. I flinched even at the thought of those idiots. I remind myself that the gods of fate will punish them every time they touch me, every time they pull on my hair and tease me. One day, they will. I shuffled through the hall trying to fit in with the crowd, trying to become invisible, tightening my grip on my backpack strap. "Hey, Nico!" I froze. Who was it? Please don't let it be them. Please, anyone but them. Please just let me leave the school safely. This is my worst nightmare. I slowly turned around to see Oliver waving towards me. I couldn't help but sigh in relief. Oliver, the only nice person in this entire school. The gods of fate were smiling on me today. "Hey, Oliver," I smiled, hoping that he wouldn't talk to me for long. I just wanted to get the hell out of there already. "How's your day today?" he asked with an innocent smile. I liked Oliver. I really did. And I appreciated his kindness towards me when the rest of the world shut me out. "Good," I grinned, trying to make the conversation go by quicker. "Please just let me go," I prayed. "Did you hear about Jonas White?" he asked, tilting his head a little to the side. Jonas White. A bastard who got his high picking on other people. How could I forget that prick? I hated him with every ounce of my being. Him and his little group of stupid jocks. I flinched at the thought of them hitting me and throwing me to the ground. I'm glad I won't ever have to see his disgusting face again. No, I haven't. What happened? I asked, trying to seem interested. In reality, I couldn't care less about him. He went missing. No one's seen him since yesterday. He didn't go home after school. Have you seen him? I shook my head no. I didn't understand why people even cared about him. I'm glad he's missing. It's what he deserves. I haven't, I answered. Maybe he just had to get away for a little. School gets hard sometimes. Oliver nodded. He knew I didn't like Jonas, and he knew it'd be useless to keep talking to me about him. Alright, he said, giving me another smile. I know how much they tease you. I'm sorry for asking you about him. I'll let you go home now. Bye, Nico. And with that, he turned around and walked away. I sighed, thankful for it all to be over. I reached towards my backpack, feeling what was inside. I traced the shapes of the 4 plastic bags with my fingers. I counted them in my head. 1, 2, folded arms. 1, 2, legs. Each cut up into little pieces to fit inside my backpack. I quietly thanked the gods of fate. They finally gave Jonas what he deserved. They were truly on my side today. I smiled to myself and walked out of the school, glad to never have to return again.
Thank you all so much for listening to tonight's story. If you'd like to hear more, feel free to subscribe. If there's a horror story that you'd like me to narrate, feel free to email me at catacomblibrary@gmail.com. You can also follow me on social media using the links below, and if you'd like to donate to my Patreon, you can do that as well. I have exclusive content for those who do, and you will be financially supporting this channel, which I'll be very thankful for.
For now, your visit to the catacombs has ended. Stay safe out there.